now going to David Icke for an abbreviated 30-minute interview because he's got stuff he's got to do. David, you're in New Zealand, right?
Yes, mate. I arrived literally a few hours ago, so I've not had a lot of sleep. But yeah, it's the last stage of a Australian New Zealand speaking tour, which has been unbelievable. If anyone who wants to have confirmation that the world is waking up, just not parts of the world, they should have been with me in the last 7 weeks. I mean, when you get 2,000 people turning up at one event in a place called the Gold Coast in Australia, you know, given that I've been here a few times and talked to a phone box often before, you know that there's a wake-up going on worldwide.
Well, there certainly is. I mean, I'm seeing this wake-up worldwide. People who aren't well-known or whose faces aren't recognizable kind of feel like they're alone. But when you are a David Icke or a George Norrie or an Alex Jones, you do run into the people. And I'm telling you, David, 10 years ago, maybe 1 out of 15 people I walked by on a street anywhere in the U.S. would stop and talk to me. Now it's every 4 or 5. I can't go out in public now. And I must be wild for you. And it's not, ooh, look, we're well-known, we're celebrities. You were a celebrity before you even got involved in this stuff. Champion goalie, national TV host, head of the Green Party. But are you not seeing the same thing now? The feedback, and I think it's important for those of us that are recognized to be able to tell the public, the dominoes have already fallen. That's why the elite's getting ready to start all these new wars. David, what's happening in Europe with the Vatican calling for world government, global currency, the open call for Israel to attack Iran? It seems like the quickening is upon us.
Yes, it is. I mean, there comes a point, I said it years ago, when something's being manipulated covertly into place, that can go on for a while. But there comes a point where the new society that you want to introduce has to break the surface where it can be seen. And that's what we're seeing now, this window of opportunity where it's not sometime over the rainbow anymore. It's not this is coming if. It's here. It's how deeply are we going to allow it to go in, and how much are we going to pull it back from where it's already got. And so we're now seeing the real blatant unfolding and calling for this whole structure of global fascist centralized control that we've been talking about all these years. And I think there's another thing here as well, which I've been aware of, Alex, for a long, long time. And that is that as this awakening more and more manifests itself, and although, you know, these protests around the world, lots and lots of people involved, fantastic that they're doing that, but they have to get streetwise to the game that's being played, otherwise the game will play them and use their genuineness to do it. But this awakening is reaching the point where a massive Rubicon has been crossed. It's like in the Matrix movie where Neo is asked to accept the fact that he's a slave. That's the big Rubicon. Okay, I understand my situation. I'm a slave. Next thing, I'm not having it anymore. And this is where these protests, the genuine people out there around the world doing this, they've crossed that line. I realize I'm a slave. I realize the world is deeply corrupt beyond anything I thought before, and I'm not having it. Now the next stage is to get streetwise, because if that doesn't happen, then you can get manipulated into calling for things that force which you are out there challenging actually wants to introduce. And so what we're seeing, for instance, now in Europe is the euro being basically attacked because of a simple reason. People say, well, it's not good for the euro that it's not working. It's not supposed to work. They want a one world single electronic currency. Therefore, they have to make currencies in all the forms that they are now not to work so they can offer the solution and the solution until they get to that point of a single electronic currency. So what the euro has been is a stalking horse. All over Europe, you had the lira, the franc, the Deutschmark, all these different currencies. Now, if you want a one-world currency, you've got to mop them up. And if you're going to mop them up one after the other, you know, in terms of individual countries, then it's going to take you a long while. So you introduce a single currency for all those former multiple currencies in Europe, and you introduce the euro. Now the lira's gone, the franc's gone, the Deutschmark's gone. In one fell swoop, you've done it. Apart from one or two like Britain, I still have the pound. But then, next stage, you've got to make eventually the euro not work, because that's not your end product. Your single electronic currency is your end product, and thus we're seeing the undermining of the euro. I'm not saying it will disappear tomorrow, but it will disappear eventually. And for it to disappear, it's got to be made not to work, and for people to think something has to replace it. And that's the way we're going all over the world. And when you've got the Vatican, which is the Church of Babylon relocated, I mean, you do the historical research, the Church of Babylon relocated to Rome. They just changed the names. And so it's absolutely in line with the whole plot that a Vatican organization would come out and join George Soros and all these other people calling for a central bank, a world central bank. And this is the big point, Alex, in terms of the protesters, because I've seen some of this over the last few weeks, where people are being manipulated to, some of them anyway, to call for some kind of democratic world authority to take over the banks, democratic control of the banks and all this stuff. It's a scam. It's what they want. I mean, let's just analyze this. We have got into this mess of the control of the few over the many in a simple process, the constant, incessant centralization of power in all areas of our lives. They gave it a name decades ago, globalization. That's just the agenda unfolding. So we got into this situation because control of the banking system is in the hands of so few people. Therefore, the few dictate and run the financial system for the many. This is where this whole thing about the 1% and the 99% has come from. You look at government, centralization of power in Europe now, because the European Parliament's just a talking shop to give the illusion of any kind of democratic, process in the European Union. It's dictated from Brussels by dark suits that are appointed by the cabal. So now the central few in Europe are dictating to the whole European population that are involved in the European Union. And so we're in this mess now where countries like Greece cannot individually respond to their problems. They have to do it collectively through this centralized organization because they're all members of the same currency, the euro. And where I'm going with this is this. We have got into the situation that has got people onto the streets of the world for the incessant centralization of power. So are we going to say the answer to that is even more centralization of power? Let's take it onto a global level now. Instead of having the European Central Bank dictating the economies and currencies of Europe, let's have a world central bank, and then they can do it to every country in the world. It's the other way, surely, we need to go. When the cabal has spent centuries and more incessantly centralizing power in the world, it's because it suits them. It's because the more you centralize power, the more power the few have over the many, and the more you centralize power, the more power you then have to centralize even quicker. This is why the speed of globalization, as it's called, has got quicker and quicker and quicker. So they want to go incessantly towards centralization of power on a global level. Therefore, we the people, surely, want to go the other way, where people in their communities are having a say in the decision-making over their communities, where there's such diversity of power that no central cabal can run a state, never mind a country, never mind a world. This is the way we need to go. And I just say this to the people on the streets in the protest. If anyone comes along, organizations or individuals or whatever, and they're calling for a centralization of power on a global level to solve the problem reaction solution that these people are protesting about, then they're either completely ignorant of the way the game is being played and where the game wants to go, or they are manipulating you on behalf of the game.
David, very powerfully said, and that's what the Trilateral Commission said they would do in the 70s, and it's so transparent to those of us that are awake that we see clearly. They always hold you hostage and say, give more centralization to us, And then the crisis only gets worse, and they say, okay, now I've got you deeper in, give us more.
Exactly.
But these vampires are being exposed. I mean, I'll tell you now, Jesse Ventura's trying to get a hold of you, and a lot of his material he wasn't convinced of, but the deeper he gets into it, you know, he's looking at the fact that they're trying to suppress what you're doing because it could end the whole existing religious order. So I do, when the interview ends, want to try to give you their number so they can hopefully interview you, even if it's for Skype, for the TV show. And in the TV show, you know, I'm not naive like I was 12 years ago and turned the punch bowl, but I play devil's advocate. I say people didn't believe what David Icke had to say before, and some would say that it makes us feel powerless, that it's this off-world power. But, you know, there's a lot of credence to what he has to say, so you need to talk to David Icke. You know, I've been interviewed by him, and I send him to you, so I hope that happens, because, you know, that's part of their whole research. I know you're very busy, but
yeah, I think actually, Alex, I'm going to talk to them later today, which will be good. You know, I listened to an interview you did with Fritz Springmeier the other day, and I've see what's happened to Fritz and stuff, and I met Fritz a long time ago, and this stuff that, you know, we've been talking about the Satanism, the worshipping of the gods, the blood drinking, and all that stuff.
Did you know they've confirmed in Canada, I'm going to just interrupt you, this is in like the Globe and Mail and Toronto Star, that at these reservations, over half the kids were being killed, and now they have witnesses that say the Queen of England 30 years ago was there and took 10 kids with her? I mean, this is in the Canadian news. This is crazy. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I saw that, Alex, and of course, at least a number of the witnesses that
are dead.
That they saw him are no longer alive, you know. I mean, it's funny, I've been in Australia, and I offered the Queen a ticket, but she didn't turn up, but she was out here at the same time, right?
But you were getting into Satanism, and I interrupted you.
Yeah, she was having a walkabout in Melbourne when I was there. It was hilarious, really. But and you see people bowing to them, and there was this controversy and scandal that the Prime Minister of Australia didn't curtsy when she met the Queen. I mean, it's unbelievable the level of childishness that some people in this world are involved in. But the thing about Satanism, it's a wider point, Alex, really, and I completely understand it. And this is why the challenge now for people who are waking up to, hey, the world's not like I thought it was, it is a real challenge to way open the mind. It's like Socrates in ancient Greece is supposed to have said, wisdom is knowing how little we know. Well, you know, it's not that you believe everything, you don't, but you don't dismiss things by reflex action just because they're so different, because this is the point. The difference between the world that we're sold through our lives, through the media and the education system and all the rest of it, the world as it works and what's going on, and the powers that are deciding things, is so unbelievable, breathtakingly, staggeringly different to the world that's really going on in the shadows and what's going on in the shadows, that chasm is a real challenge for people to leap, to think from their perspective of a lifetime of this is how the world works, this is how I've always understood it, to leap into what's actually going on.
Yeah, we're investigating that chasm.
Yeah, it is. It's a major challenge, but we need to do it because the rabbit hole is very, very deep. And the deeper you go in the rabbit hole, not only do you understand so much more, what it's like is when we're looking at the banking scams and the political scams and the engineered wars and all these things that need to be exposed, and we're all doing our best to do it, symbolically, we're actually looking at a movie when it's hit the screen. When you go deeper in the rabbit hole and deeper in the rabbit hole, you get closer and closer to the projector that's projecting onto that screen. In other words, all the stuff in the background that manifests plays out as men in dark suits manipulating the banking system and orchestrating 9/11 and all that stuff, and the people in the military doing that, and intelligence. And so you get closer and closer, not only to understanding the real force behind the world that we experience every day, but also the answers to it, how to unravel it, because that's where the answers lie as well. And these people have been involved in satanic ritual, these bloodlines, right back to the ancient world for a long time, because of the way humanity in general had, its attitudes at that time. They did it openly. They did, open sacrifices to the gods. And by the way, this is an important point. they sacrificed young virgins to the gods. What's young virgins code for? Children. And there's a reason for this, that the children's energy changes at puberty. I mean, we see a hormonal change at puberty, but actually it's an energetic change which manifests through as a hormonal change. These people want that child's energy before that change takes place that we call puberty, when they move in towards...
They want the purity, they want the innocence, and I want to raise this to you. That's why I'm glad you're here, David. I want to go over this point with you. I remember you over a decade ago talking about this, Fritz as well, but you even before, talking about the Transylvanian bloodlines. The British royalty really isn't even British. They're German, but they're not German. They're Transylvanian. Yep. Now, the Prince of Wales, who calls for world population reduction and all the rest of this, he has come out and he's bought a house in Transylvania, in the Carpathian Mountains and Forest. He says, yes, my main ancestor is Vlad the Impaler. Yeah. And then Vlad had all these kids that killed kids and bathed in their blood, these women. Yeah. This is Count Dracula, and now he's hanging out a lot of the time in Transylvania. And again, these legends all go back to at least something real. And then you see the British royalty, which is really Transylvanian, pushing world government, pushing population reduction, pushing cancer viruses, World Bank programs in Uganda and Honduras, mainstream news the last month, mowing villagers down to take their property. These really are the psychic vampires, bare minimum. And some say maybe David Icke's right. Maybe it's not vampires, it's something else. But, I mean, my God, who could make this? I remember you talking about that 15 years ago. Why is it now manifesting? Why is he taking on his Transylvanian bloodline and literally, reportedly, moving into the birthplace of Vlad the Impaler?
Well, you know, Mary of Teck, who was the grandmother of the present queen, I think it was the grandmother of the present queen, she is a direct descendant from the sister of Vlad Dracula. So the whole stuff is in there. And Vlad Dracula, of course, was that whole family that he was part of, was the inspiration for the Dracula stories. And, you know, like I say, you know, these people have been doing it openly before humanity grew up to a large extent, and it was no longer acceptable. And now they do it behind the scenes, but they're doing the same things. And, you know, Vlad Dracula, he used to impale people on spears and stuff, and they just let them rot to death.
Yeah, but now they admit the British royalty even 100, 200, 300 years ago was eating human flesh. I just showed a Daily Mail.
I know. But of course, it's like I said in my latest book, you know, it wasn't hundreds of years ago, the last time that the royal family ate human flesh. It was probably a week last Tuesday. You know what I mean? I mean, this is the chasm, Alex, that I was talking about a few minutes ago. The chasm to encompass at least the possibility, and it's more than possibility. This is fact, but at least the possibility that these people that we see on CNN and the BBC and the Queens and the Royal, and that's the other point. Then that's not you know, you made the point now about German and Transylvania, but that's the same of the Spanish royal family, the Danish royal family, the Swedish royal family, the Belgian royal family, the Norwegian royal family. When you look at them, they're like branches of the same bloodline network, and thus they are like chief executive officers placed into countries to run the show on behalf of the cabal. And of course, when we had this resistance to overt, in-your-face royal dictatorship, and what we call politics started to move in and take that over, because it was power to the people. Some of these bloodlines stayed in overt royal situations, like the British royal family and etc. and those others. But a lot of the other royal bloodlines that still are perceived as royal because they have a particular genetics, they went into the dark sea professions. They went into run the banks and run the politics, run the transnational corporations. And so this bloodline, which it's like the peak of an iceberg, tip of an iceberg. The tip of the iceberg of the bloodline is what you can see. People that are in certain positions of power and head of state because of their genetics, like the British royal family. But under the water, under the scanner, under the radar of that iceberg are all all these bloodlines like the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and what have you, who are the same bloodline network, but they wear dark suits instead of coronets. But it's the same thing. And it's often the ones that don't wear the coronets that have more power in the network than those who do. So it's...
well, let's go back to Dracula, though.
All of them, Alex, are involved in this Satanism, because that's what that bloodline does. I explain it in detail.
But, David, let me stop you, because as this becomes more apparent, it becomes more and more, as I research more and more, it becomes more apparent that you're onto something. We have all these archetypes. I've studied more history. The Greeks would actually have hunting of vampires. The Romans did it. Every culture feared this, whether they were psychopaths that thought they were people that needed blood or whatever. The point is, this group has always been amongst us. They get into power. They set up public bloodletting, public sacrifice. Nero.
That's absolutely right.
Nero's on record.
Sacrifice to them.
Nero dressed up like a werewolf and would go at public parties and chain down a slave and chew out their throat. That's mainline history. So, why? Where is this going? What are they going to do as we awaken? How does it tie into the Satanism? Because whatever's behind it, the point is these people are there. We have the archetypal aristocrat in the tuxedo with the cloak who's really a blood-drinking killer. I mean, what is the legends telling us?
Well, I mean, let's go some way deep into this from where this is coming from my point of view. When you do the research of ancient legends and accounts and what people call myths, but ancient myths have such a symbolic truth when you get into them deeply. They talk of a reptilian-type race that came to Earth and started to manipulate and impose itself on humanity. And one of the interesting things is, and I think very, very significant, is every single one of these legends in different parts of the world talk about the fact that these reptilian entities demanded human sacrifice. The legends in southern Africa say that these Chitahuri, the children of the serpent as they call them, introduced cannibalism, which didn't happen before they arrived. And when you have these ancient stories, legends, accounts of the sacrificing humans to the gods, children overwhelmingly to the gods, then these are the gods they were sacrificing them to. Because, let's get into it. These entities operate overwhelmingly outside of this incredibly narrow band of human visual sight, which is called visible light. It's unbelievable how narrow band of frequency that we are actually perceiving when we look through our eyes, compared with, this is mainstream science, compared with what is actually existing in this universe on other frequency ranges that we can't access. So when these entities are operating outside of the visible light human frequency range, we can't see them. And they find it difficult to come into our frequency range because they're a different frequency entity. So what they've done is they created hybrid bloodlines, which we call the Illuminati bloodlines. And they have a greater infusion of reptilian genetics. From what people have told me, there's more copper in the blood of these hybrids. And thus, in a certain chemical process, their blood turns a greeny-blue color, which they tell me is the reason for calling these aristocratic and royal bloodlines the blue bloods. So what they've done is created representatives within the frequency range visible light that we experience to run this reality, our world, on behalf of these hidden masters. And the thing is that if you have everything in the end, again, this is mainstream science and quantum physics if you get into it, everything, no matter how solid it looks, its basis is a vibrational information field. It's a frequency field, a waveform field that is vibrating to a certain frequency. If it vibrates to a very slow frequency, then it manifests in our world as something that's really solid, like a rock or a wooden table. If it's vibrating much quicker, it becomes much more ethereal in the way that it manifests in our reality. And so, therefore, if you can get the genetics closer to these entities, then there is a vibrational compatibility, a frequency compatibility compatibility with these hybrid bloodlines that is much closer to these hidden entities than the general run of the global population. Therefore, and again, this is an ancient theme that goes back as far as known human history, possession, that is still being talked about today, and it's true. These entities possess, because of this vibrational compatibility they have, much greater than the general human population. They can control, connect with, and control their mental, what passes for their emotional processes, and therefore...
So basically we're like robots for them. All I know is this, David.
Yeah, well, just let me say this, Alex, because this will really simplify in a minute what I'm trying to say. You know, when scientists are they're working with material that's too dangerous, so the material goes into a tank, and the scientists stand outside the tank, and they put their arms in the tank through those big long gloves so that they can work with the material while being outside the tank.
Yes.
If you take that tank to be our world, you take the scientists to be these entities, and you take those gloves to be the Illuminati bloodlines that run the world at the moment. That's the dynamic. That's the relationship between them. So these people like the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and the British royal families, they're just puppets in their own way as well. But because they look human and have different names, they hide the fact that there is a specific force behind this, which is orchestrating all of this stuff. And these gods, as they perceive them, they're the gods that these bloodlines do the rituals to, do the sacrifice to. For this reason, when they are sacrificing someone, there is a release of absolute terror, and that energy of terror, of fear, of unbelievable levels of terror, that is absorbed by these entities, and they feed off it. It's their sustenance. And then at the same time, when this unimaginable level of terror is manifest, a particular adrenaline enters the bloodstream, and the Satanists in human form, shall we say, that are performing the ritual within our world, they then drink the blood with that adrenaline in it, and they get a high, just like the highest drug you can imagine. They go crazy. And if people ever watch that movie series Blade, when they went crazy in the rituals with the blood and everything, that is based on fact. That's what happens. That's what some of the most famous people on this planet are doing. And this is the chasm we have to leap.
Well, look, all I know is the globalist, when I was at Bohemian Grove 11 years ago and snuck in, they were taking it serious. They were in high religious reverence.
Right.
And there's no doubt the elites do believe that they are involved in the occult, skull and bones, all of it, and that is our ruling class. And there's no doubt that every culture has these legends, and that every culture then manifested human sacrifice, blood drinking, all of this. So why did every human culture do this? Because I'll tell you right now, I, as just a normal human, have zero. In fact, I have a negative desire to drink blood or sacrifice somebody. So why in every ruling class, in every culture, does this manifest? That's what adds credence to what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Alex, it's the genetics. What genetics is to these people who understand, I mean, they're genetic, obsessed with genetics, which to them is a form of technology.
Well, they knew about it before it happened. They said we're going to discover the DNA. We're going to have eugenics 160 years ago, and they pioneered the whole system.
Yeah, and the genetics is like a software program. And the software program in these hybrid bloodlines includes a desire to do all the things that the vast majority of the rest of the population would find, beyond belief that anyone could do. Like blood drinking sacrifice. It's in the genetics. It's like a software program playing through them, and therefore I've said so many times over the last 21 years since I started going into all this, if people perceive what these bloodlines would do on the basis of what they themselves would or would not do, you've completely lost the plot. Because if we could look through the eyes, Alex, of these hybrid bloodlines, the Rockefellers, the Royals, the Rothschilds, etc., we would be beyond shocked at the way they were perceiving reality compared with the way most humans perceive reality. You see, one of the things, this is a really important point, one of the things that this software program, I'm calling these hybrid bloodlines, one of the key things that's been deleted from them is empathy. The ability to feel for the consequences and the feelings of others that you put in terrible positions. That empathy is a fail-safe mechanism for human behavior, because we look in a child's face, Alex, and the thought of sacrificing that child, the thought of terrorizing that child, of sexually abusing that child, the very empathy alone deletes anything.
No, it's more than that.
Possible.
It's more than that. I'm like Tony Montana. I'm ready to kill anybody who wants to hurt a child. I don't have a lust for violence and things like that, except when somebody's hurting a child. I'm ready to kick 20 people's ass, David. The thought of somebody hurting a child, I'm ready to stomp 20 people on the ground. And I'm not a tough guy, but I'm ready to absolutely open a can of clobbering in time. And so I can't, and that's why good people are blind. We can't imagine that the evil is even into this.
Yeah, the point I'm making is, though, that process of feeling empathy for the suffering of the child, they do not have the ability to feel that. This is the key, because this hybrid genetics has deleted that. It's deleted it on purpose, because you don't want people representing your horrific agenda for humanity if they have a conscience. The last thing that you want, because that's going to make it much more difficult to get those people.
So in your research, I would have zero of this hybrid stuff if I feel absolutely violent towards anybody who wants to hurt a child.
Well, no, what I would say is, if you have a feeling that you can hurt people, and anybody, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about in general, hurt people, and not have any feelings for the what they are suffering, what they are feeling as the result of your actions, well, that is a lack of empathy. And this is why pepper bombing Baghdad, pepper bombing Libya, Tripoli, Sirte, full of civilians, killing 2,000 people on 9/11. For the rest of us, the feeling of empathy with their suffering, with their trauma, with
it's overwhelming. It's torture.
With the parents and the loved ones of people on 9/11, that alone would stop us even thinking or dreaming about doing it. You delete that, Alex, there are no limits, there are no buffer stops on behavior, and because there are no emotional
Well, let me expand on that, though. Have you seen the little 3-year-old girl with the whole lower mandible blown off with the tongue hanging out, screaming in panic and pain? For us, that's torture, but you're saying for the Illuminati, that's music. Look, Alex. Let's look at this again in a very simple way.
If you are capable, without empathy, without feeling, to sacrifice a child and go through the ritual that builds up and builds up and builds up to it, building systematically the terror in that child, are you going to give a damn about a child blown apart by a NATO bomb? No, you're going to think it's great. You're going to think it's fun. In so many ways, mate, that little 12-second clip of Hillary Clinton glorifying in the death of Gaddafi that's been going around the internet, that absolutely, in a very, very encapsulated 12-second way, very mild compared with what they do in the shadows.
We came, we saw, we died.
Encapsulated these people's attitude to the human population.
Yeah, we came, we saw, he died. And the reporter giggles with demonic pleasure. Hillary, and the word is, they had agreed to have him surrender. Hillary was the sign. She landed. They set him up. He came out in a white flag, and they killed him.
Yeah, absolutely. And until we breach this chasm and realize what we're really dealing with, a level of what people call evil. I mean, that's even a word that doesn't describe it. A level of darkness, of beyond our imagination to comprehend where the depths that they're coming from. That is the power that is running NATO, that is running governments, that is running the banking system. This is why, let's look at this again, this is why they'll crash the banking system to get a massive problem to which they can advance their agenda with a solution. But look at the people in tent cities across America. I could bloody cry when I see it. And decent people with their families who are out of work and can't pay their mortgage because of the banks who then come across and take their house away. And they can do that. They can look at the television every night and see this stuff and go on the internet, and they can see the suffering of vast numbers of people in Greece, in America, and all over the world. They can see the unbelievable suffering in what's become the third world, where they make their products for cents on a dollar in starvation wages in sweatshops, and then ship them across the world and charge as much as they can get for them. They can do that. They can do all of that. This is the mentality that's behind it. The same mentality that can sacrifice a child will have no problem doing that to vast numbers of people.
Well, David, it's more than that. And this is why I want to close with you in the last 5-6 minutes we have left. The genetic engineering, the UN releasing mosquitoes that forcibly inoculate us, Bill Gates making jokes about killing grandma to create 10 jobs, the reduction in fertility, the autism exploding, this culture of death. I want David Icke to tell us now, whatever these psychopaths are, they might as well be blood-drinking whatevers. I mean, they're psycho demons, whatever they are, who don't have empathy and who don't have a soul and who are my eternal enemy. What is their end game? You say they're running out of time, but if they had their way, what are we facing? What's coming up, this great challenge? What do they want to set up in this world? Because no doubt the awakening's happening. They're coming in both feet down, trying to keep us down. David Icke, what are we about to see? What is their end game? And how does the battle end? How does it unravel? Sum it up.
Well, just very quickly to start with, you mentioned there the obsession with death. We think about radio stations. If you're broadcasting on Radio 1, you're not going to connect with Radio 2. It's on a different frequency. If you therefore are going to absorb energy, which is your sustenance, then you've got to get that energy on the frequency of Radio 1, your frequency. And the frequency of these people, by their very, very nature, because our frequency is dictated by our attitudes and everything, is low vibrational, is the same frequency range as low vibrational human emotion. So the more that fear, anxiety, frustration, but anything that's surrounding death and destruction is generating the very energy from humanity that you are taking your sustenance from. This is why they're obsessed with death and everything to do with death. To them, you see, when you pepper bomb Tripoli, you're creating a vast explosion by what you do to those people and decent people.
Sure, it's blood in the water, so they're trying to create death and destruction.
Because that creates the very energy that they absorb. Love, appreciation, kindness, peace. These are energy frequencies that they can't access. This is why they don't want that in the world.
Well, that's why the television is designed to lower the overall brainwave.
Exactly, and the movies and all that stuff. But in terms of the end game, what they are looking for is a vastly reduced global population, vastly reduced, and that would be beyond what we perceive as slaves now. They would eventually be manipulated specifically. This was in Brave New World, Aldous Huxley. Specifically bred to be slaves, to have enough intelligence to serve as a slave, but nothing like enough intelligence to realize that they're slaves in their situation. So they would just do it without question. They want a network of mind control, constant mind control, which they're now starting to bring in through these smart grids and these light bulbs, these so-called energy-saving light bulbs. What they are, actually, it sounds crazy, but it's not. they are transmitters of information. And, you know, in my new book coming out in January, I've quoted the scientists who've looked into the way of transmitting information through the electrical system, and they've explained how it's been done through this woodpecker signal that came out of the Soviet Union and through other means, even with the grid that we have now. And what the smart grids are with these smart meters, and I've just come from Australia, they're kicking up a fuss there, they're kicking up a fuss about them in California.
No, they admit they can cause cancer, so they can beam whatever frequency they want.
Exactly.
They're in your house, and they admit, it was on the news today, even San Francisco Chronicle, the smart meters can even with an algorithm tell what you're watching on TV.
Yes, exactly. And so this smart meter grid, this smart grid, which they want to connect in every country, and in every country connected to a global network, it is a purpose-built surveillance operation, so that they, like you quite rightly say, can see the fine detail of your lives through the communications with the operating center. But also, they
admit that, by the way. They admit they're putting up nationwide street lights that listen and videotape you.
Yeah, exactly. But the key thing beyond that is that they can send information the other way, and through this delivery system, which these light bulbs are a big part of it, they're delivering within the frequency range of human brain activity information which people are designed to decode as their own thoughts and perceptions. It's a mass mind control operation. And so, you know, there's so many elements to it, but what they want is this, the population, human population, that comes into this world through not even procreation, as Brave New World talked about eventually, but through, laboratory means. And where they are produced in batches. And
that's why they have to destroy our fertility, so we have to go to them to have them born in a laboratory where they can then put in the Trojan horses as they want, and you actually get a child that looks like you, but it's not even your child. You can see this program, this plan. David, promise me that before the new book comes out in January that you will join us again here on air. But in closing, because I got Mike Adams, waiting to come in here.
Yeah, Mike's a great guy. I love his stuff.
He's awesome, but I keep you for 10 hours. I would, but and I'm sorry that we didn't get your email till earlier with the phone number, crazy internet stuff. But in closing, all of this, though, to give hope from my gut is because the system is panicking and they have failed and they're scared.
Well, this is the key point. You see, I make the very strong difference between what I call consciousness, which is the infinite, eternal self, and what I call mind-body, which is the interface. It's like a computer. It's like people say I'm going on the internet, but we don't go on the internet. The computer does, and we interact.
So even if they program us, our soul still knows.
Yeah. What I'm saying, what I'm going quickly with this. I know you're running out of time, but it's an important point. We go on the internet through the computer. Now, what if the computer started becoming detached from us sitting at the keyboard, and we were smacking the mouse and smacking the keyboard and nothing was happening, and now the computer is deciding where it's going on the internet and what he thinks of it? That is the dynamic of the human condition. The system is structured to pull us into five-sense reality only, and then program through eyes and ears information, which they control, our perception of reality. What is happening now, yes, is that people are opening their minds and letting consciousness in to that perception process. And when they do, they can see things suddenly. Why didn't I see it before? It's so obvious. Well, because you're looking at the world from another level of consciousness now. This is what's happening. This is what they're terrified of, because they know if enough people do this, game over. Because they can only control us through body-mind. They can't control us through consciousness. And therefore, the more people that awaken, and my goodness, the exponential curve now is extraordinary, the more this system loses its grip on human perception. And it loses its grip on human perception, it loses its grip on human enslavement.
Well, that was my final question, is that the more they attack us, the more we resist. All I see is an awakening. And I see the system...
It's incredible. The number of the people... I mean, you'll know this, Alex. I mean, people listening to this program will know this. how people now, who you'd have said, never them, never her, never him, never. And they're now going, hold on a second, this has started to make sense. And you're going, not you. I mean, people are now awakening who very short time ago, mate, would have laughed this stuff in the face. And that's the level of transformation that's now going. And we've seen nothing yet. But, of course, as this happens, the cornered rat is going to throw everything at us to try to hold on to its power. And there's going to be a lot of challenges, and it's going to be a lot of upheaval, and it's going to create as much chaos as it can so that we get pulled in the five senses of fear and anxiety and, oh, my God. But it's not got the power to ultimately prevail. It's not. But it can cause a lot of problems for us, as it already is.
And that's what the new war is about. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
What's the name of the new book coming out?
Remember Who You Are. And it's a multiple. It's not just about that one, thing that comes to mind when you say that. It's a massive tapestry of information. But remember who you are. Yeah, you're not Ethel Jones. You're not Charlie Smith. You're not your job. You're not your income bracket. You're not your color or your race. That's what you're experiencing. You are consciousness, all-powerful, infinite, eternal consciousness. All that is, can be, and ever will be. And when we move to that perception of self, to that self-identity, suddenly, power's little me, I just work down the store, forget it. That's an experience. It's not who you are. And this recognition of our true self and our true power is what's going to bring this house of cards down. Because the house of cards is held together by us believing the illusion that we're only little me.
You know, David, not only is the public on fire, the general population waking up, I don't think in probably 50 interviews, just a guesstimation, I've ever heard you this energized. In fact, it's painful to even end this interview with you now because I can't imagine what else you have to say. You sound like you are on fire right now.
Oh, yeah, I am. I'm energized. You know what it's like? You know when you bang your head against a wall and you get a headache and then suddenly the wall starts to crumble, you think, hey, I'll bang it some more now. And to see the light go on in so many people, I mean, the 2,000 people turning up in just one part of Australia, which has a population of only 22 million. I mean, there were 6 other events as well as that. And we're moving. And I'm just coming into America. I'm talking in Cleveland, Ohio, next Saturday, and then New York the Saturday after that, Sunday after that. And I'm looking forward to going to the Wall Street protest and seeing what's really going on there.
Wait a minute. You're in the U.S.? Well, let us during the main show. Let me put you on hold right now. I know Ventura's people want to call you right now about getting you on the show. They're listening right now. They're about to call your hotel room there on the other side of the planet in New Zealand. But what about Jaron emailing you and so we can really have a full discussion? This quickening's accelerating. How about you come on when you're here in the U.S.?
Yeah, no problem.
Do they go to davidicke.com to find tickets and all that?
Yeah. It's very simple. If they go to davidicke.com, it's all there. Yeah, but it's amazing what's happening, Alex. It really is. And
well, David, I'll say this in closing, and I'm going to go to break and say bye to you during the break, and then Michael's going to give you a call from Ventura's people, but I can feel it. I mean, whatever it is, whether you're right or wrong, this is not of this world. Like the devil, as Christians say, whatever. There is a system of evil tying things together that you can only describe as extraordinary and anti-human. And whatever it is, some group consciousness of the psychopaths together, whatever it is, it's got to be met. And I can feel the victory coming. Few of us are well known and actually can be recognized. The general public feels like they're alone. That's the point I made at the start of this interview, is that you're known, I'm known, a few others are known. We see how many people are awake. I want folks to take heart and realize the numbers of awake people is swelling, and as you said, the cornered rat is going to strike.
Yes, it is, but it's not going to prevail. It's not going to prevail. It's striking out of panic to a large extent because it's trying to keep the lid on this. It's no accident that it's the same time that this awakening is happening. It's the same time that they're throwing everything they can at us. It's because they're trying to keep the lid on this, and they can't, and therefore they better get used to it.
Well, all I can say is excellent job with everything you're doing, David, davidicke.com. Again, where all are you speaking in the U.S.?
Cleveland, Ohio, in a week Saturday, and then New York the following Sunday.
You know, I need to get out to one of those events. You know, David, I still have never met you in person.
I know. Come to New York, mate.
I guess I can let the TSA grab me. You know what? Is that not slave training for these serpents to put their hands on us?
Oh yeah, I mean, all this stuff of you know, the rub down for children and stuff. It's preparing children to find that totally acceptable. You know, I mean, I've mentioned in the new book, you know, efforts, and I'm sure you've come across them, efforts to make paedophilia and you know, sex with children to acceptable and a normal part of stuff. And you know what we're seeing with the so-called human rights, UN human rights of the child and all that stuff. Some of it sounds good on the surface, but it's all part of a massive tapestry of removing power of the parents over the lives of the child, and so giving it to the state under the illusion of giving it to the child. This is why, you know, these horrendous bloody vaccines that they're doing for girls and offering it for, trying to getting in for boys now. That some states are, or some authorities are saying that the girl must have the right to decide if they have it, not the parents. So it's all part of this eroding of parental influence over their children, because the state wants the kids. And Brave New World, Aldous Huxley, it's all in there.
Well, David Icke, we're going to go to this little promo for the money bomb we're doing right now, and I'll say bye to you during this.